But whatever you're into, do it. Your days are numbered, whether you want to admit it or not. If there's something out there you want to do, you need to go for it. We're getting ready tonight. Got the truck out, got the trailer out. We're all hooked up. A few things to grab: tie down straps, tools, check your air pressure in your tires, your oil, you know, all that kind of trip stuff. We are going on an adventure first thing in the morning. It won't even be daylight. We're going to leave probably 6:45, and we're going to ride 3 hours for a bike. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll find out later. I'm excited about it. It's nothing, you know, crazy rare or anything like that, but it's a nice bike to have if you can run across one. I'll tell you this, it's an 85, and so that's all I'm going to tell you. It's an 85, and I'm excited to get it. It's going to be fun. I think Uncle Larry is going to go with me, and we're going to have a ball. We're going to get out of town and ride. It's 3 hours one way. I thought I'd take a moment in the kind of get ready tonight is talk about a little, you know, the other aspects of collecting, whether it's three-wheelers or tractors or old cars or whatever it is. It's the infrastructure it takes to get these things. It's trailers, it's tie-down straps, it's chains, it's keeping your equipment up and tagged and serviced, and all those things are kind of the unseen part of collecting. Whatever you're into, it doesn't matter. They all have their own special things, and I thought I'd share with you tonight something that I think is really important if you're collecting three-wheelers or four-wheelers or motorcycles, and that's a good trailer. Now, I picked this one up, and I'm going to tell you, it's not ideal. It's almost perfect. This is a 6.5 by 10.5. I like the metal floor. It doesn't have a wood floor, it's a metal floor. I do like the gate on the back. There's no chains to wear out or anything like that. It's got latches on it, and they're all permanently affixed. They can't come off. Good little trailer. I picked it up secondhand. The guy that owned it before me moved, a family member, and then he sat in his yard for 2 years, he said, and then I came along. But I'm going to tell you, if you're into three-wheelers, I'd tell you the ideal size is a 6.5 by 12. It's not too big. You're not looking at a lot of taxes on your trailer tag. It's a 12 will allow you to lace 4 three-wheelers, nose to tail, nose to tail, nose to tail. The 10.5, you can only do 3, and then you have to get real creative and start stacking them. I've done it. I've put more than 3 on there. But if you want to do that to where they sit nice and they lace into one another, a 6.5 by 12 would be ideal for 4 three-wheelers. We're going to get started bright and early tomorrow. I'm going to take you along, and that's going to be this week's video. I hope you enjoy it. It's a little bit different. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. It is about 6:30 in the morning. Just kind of doing a last minute check before we roll out. Make sure we got everything we need. Also an opportunity for Chloe to go outside and take care of some business. Okay, well, we were ready to hit the road. Let's always be early. All right, Chloe, what do you think? Are we ready? Huh? We pass inspection? All right, well, let's hit the road. well, we got it off the trailer. Let's take a minute and kind of really look at what we picked up. I traveled 400 miles round trip for this bike, which is a lot further than I normally go. But times are changing, they say, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I just haven't seen the three-wheelers pop up around here. It's they're getting fewer and fewer, farther between, and the prices are still continuing to rise, which is a good thing if you're selling. So I'm not going to bash that, but you're going to have to go probably out a little further and find what you're looking for. The sport bikes are just, for me right now, a little more fun. I like the clutch, I like this full suspension, and I like the disc brakes. Pop up, actually, the young man that was selling it contacted me, and so it never hit in the market per se. It wasn't listed for sale. So that's another good thing too. Tell your friends, tell your family, your co-workers, if you're looking for a three-wheeler, let people know. Let people know you're looking for three-wheelers. You know, you don't have to be specific if you're not. Most people won't know the difference between a 200X and a 250R anyway. You know what I mean? If it's been sitting in the barn for 20 years and you know, it was Uncle Joe's, and it's just a three-wheeler. So, you know, just if you're looking for something, just put the word out. Hey, you know, if y'all know anybody that's got a three-wheeler or something like that, let me know. Remember, these things have been sitting 30 years, a lot of them. If you're looking for something that you're going to fix up like a project, then expect that. That's where you're going to find it. It's going to be in the back of a barn somewhere. Now, today's 85 is what this is. This is an 85 200X. But let's just start at the beginning and see what we bought. We got a Front Max front tire. It's got some wear on it, of course. Bike's been ridden, which is a good sign, which means that somebody put some love in it. It was operational, you know, not necessarily that long ago, maybe within the last 10 years. We got some porksicles here. They faded really bad, so we know it's been outside. I don't think these, I can't even tell if those were blue. Yep, they were blue. That's pretty bad, isn't it? They were blue. So those are nasty. We got to get those off. But the front suspension cycles, we've got a newer, this is not a original fender. This is a Mayer front fender, probably within the last 10 or 15 years. I'd say probably within the last 10, just due to it's not faded. This bike stuck out to me because of the fenders, the seat, and the tires. Tank too, we'll get to that. When you're looking for a used bike, be sure and look more than skin deep, okay? Because this is a good representation of someone that has taken a bike, they found it, they got it running, and they put some money in it, and they kind of fixed it up. And this is very typical of what you would find out. You know, you would consider it an old restoration or an old remodel, if you will. So somebody was enjoying this bike. They wanted it to look as good as they could get it, so they put fenders on it. They went as far as to put a seat on it. Looks like probably the porksicles, you know, were put on it at the same time. Probably the tires too. The front and rear tires, they seem to have the same amount of wear on them. They're both in good shape, and they have plenty of wear on them, but they are worn. So that being said, we know this bike was probably operational in the last 5 years. Let's just go with that. And when you buy from an individual, you need to be skeptical. And that's not being mean to them. That's not saying that they're not telling you the truth. But it's your money. You need to be sure you're getting what you're paying for and you're buying what you think you're buying. That's all. So now that we've kind of looked over the top of what we've got going on here, we've got, somebody's put newer grips on here. These are not factory handlebars. We've got a factory clutch lever, which is good because it's got the secondary cable for the parking brake, but the parking brake is not hooked up on the back. Very common. We've got an aftermarket not OE front brake master cylinder and hose. The caliper looks good. This bike, the front brakes actually work on this bike, believe it or not. So that's good, but the rear brakes do not work. It could be pads, it could be master cylinder, it could be a combination of things, but right now we know it's not working. So really good. There's really no real bad dents in it. No, you know, a lot of times you'll get a knee dent right here, especially if it's been wrecked. Somebody's leg hit it. The inside of this tank is just amazingly clean. It's probably one of the cleanest tanks I've seen on the inside. That tank is just way super clean. It's been argued by me that your value is right here on the surface. When you buy a three-wheeler, your money is in the tank. You can find a tank online, 250 bucks. If you want one that's really, really nice, you're looking close to $500 for one restored. So this tank, it's really, really nice. So let's go with 250. We've got a reupholstered seat here. This is not an OE Honda seat. They did a good job on it. It's a quality seat itself. It does have the Honda logo painted on the back. It looks good from a distance. It's 20-footer. We know that a seat cover runs 50 bucks. The foam seems to be in good shape. I didn't notice any holes or indentations or anything like that. A seat used like this recovered $200 on the used market if you had to sell it or if you needed to buy one. So right there you've got $450 in a tank and just the seat. We know that Mayer fenders, you can look them up yourself. Mayer fenders will run you back the rears. I think the last set I just bought was $180. So almost $200 for the rear and another $65 for the front fender. Now these aren't new, but that's what it would cost to replace them. If you wanted new replacement fenders, that's what it would cost. So you've got another $225 in fenders. So right there, even though we don't know anything else about this bike, we know that we're looking at about $600 worth of parts. And again, that's why guys cut these things up. I hate to tell you that because somebody's going to go out and cut their bike up, but that's where the money's at. It really is. It's right there. It's not in the engines and stuff. Those things add up too. But real quickly, you can assess a bike just by kind of looking at it like this. All right. So now that we've covered that, let's just start at the beginning and we'll just work our way back. We've got a nice Kenda Front Max tire. It's a very common front tire. I run this tire a lot. It works on a lot of different surfaces. Hard pack, it works really well. Sand, it works really well depending on what kind of surface you're riding on. This individual looks like they probably run on the street, and it looks like they probably put too much air in the tire. If you look close, the front tire is burnt out in the center. That means there's a lot of air in it, and the way it's been scrubbed off, it's been on a very abrasive surface. So probably on asphalt, this person probably did a lot of hard pack riding, maybe hard dirt roads, and then asphalt riding, maybe on streets and things of that nature. When you look at your bike, kind of things to assess for, one of the first things you can feel on this bike is when I push the handlebars, and if you listen close, see if you can pick this up. Listen to the front bearing. Okay, so right there, right out of the gate, that's $35 right there. Front bearing, $35. But while you're doing that, I can also tell just by kind of picking up and pushing back on the handlebars if the headset or the neck bearings are worn or real loose, and they're not. They're really tight. You can pick the bike up left or right. You can turn it. Try to see if there's any play in the stem or in the neck of the frame, depending on what you want to call it. Definitely need front wheel bearings. We've got a factory wheel and hub. The wheels are really straight on this bike. They're not banged up. They're not dented up. They look really good. Forks look good and straight. The triple trees are nice. They're pitted. They're aluminum, but nothing. Excuse me, nothing that couldn't be cleaned up. We've got a factory original headlight, which is cool. You can sand this plastic down and buff it back out. Though it does have a crack, it's not perfect, but it is here. And again, from 20 feet, it's in good shape. Our controls are respectable. They're here. They're working. We have bought bikes with a whole lot less. So that being said, I'm pretty pleased about that. We've already talked about our tank. Our tank is in really good shape. Our seat and our fenders, tires, wheels, we spoke about all of that. When you check your transmission, and I like to do this on all the bikes, you want to check the clutch. You want to make sure that the clutch is engaging and disengaging. You'll take your foot, you can just kind of put it here on the heel, pull the clutch in, put it down in first, let out on the clutch, and then try to rock the bike. And as you see, it's in gear. Pull it on the clutch, do a half click on this bike, see that you're back in neutral. Okay. So we know the clutch is functioning, we know the cable's functioning. It didn't feel real stiff. It squeaks a little bit, but it's working. We know the transmission is going in and out of gear, so that's always a good thing to check. Now, on your 83s through 85s, their biggest Achilles heel is a slipping kicker. And what you want to check for is if it just literally goes to the floor. And so you'll know real quick, just be leery of it the first couple times you kick it. Just want to kick it over, you know, it doesn't have to be real crazy. You want to feel that first gear, that first, the resistance is what I'm trying to say, not first gear. Feel that resistance and then push it through. And as long as it pushes that engine over, you're in good shape. Now, if it slips, you'll hear a ratcheting kind of noise, and the kicker will go all the way to the floor. One of the pins for the tank, but we're missing the other one. It's very common. You have two bolts. They're kind of special. They go right here on the tank. They bolt in, they hold the tank on, but they also leave a stub out that the seat indexes on two rubber grommets. So our tank is loose. This is how it came. Always want to inspect the underside of your tank. We're looking for rust or JB weld or anything like that, maybe where a tank's been patched. This tank's been sitting on the ground for a while. You see the grass kind of wedged up in it here. So probably they took it off to work on the bike and they just laid this on the ground and left it. It's got some sediment in it for sure. All right, so this is what new fenders and a nice upholstered seat covers up. You see the rust on the frame here? This bike is set outside without those plastics on it. It's set outside for a while. We've got some electrical tape up here holding our CDI in. We've got a relatively newer, got an aftermarket connection here going to the headlight. Maybe somebody's put in a new pigtail for the light. We'll have to follow that out. So what we've got here is, you know, cause for concern. We've got some wires that aren't hooked up. Let's see what we got. Yep, got some wires not hooked up. Our coil is missing the spring. Our CDI is held on with duct tape. Somebody's been in here. It's not right. But I think here's some other things that new fenders and seat covers up. Motor mounts. First thing I noticed when the guy sent me pictures on this was the motor mounts had been taken out or taken off or started to take off. Does that mean the engine's been out? Probably. I'm gonna have to go on a hunch that the motor's been pulled on this bike. I don't know that. That was my initial impression. After talking to the gentleman, he said specifically that the motor had not been out, but it seems odd to me that half the motor mounts would be taken out, and maybe they backed out. Maybe they got cold feet and didn't pull the motor out. I'm not sure. But someone has had a wrench on this bike over the years for sure. A couple things to note on the 200X. So we were missing some bolts here on our upper motor mount. That's cause for concern. We are missing the rear bolt for our motor mount here. This one goes all the way through. That is a very specific bolt. We have the lower mount bolt and we have the front bolts here. But we are missing this one back here. So we really need to get some motor mounts put on this bike before we get too crazy. Looking at the exhaust, somebody's came in and ground off the bolts. There was a heat shield here. They cut those off, I guess, to clean that up, and then it rusted. Not the factory plug coil here. Let's see here. We've got, this is original, which is nice. These are rebuildable. This is our master cylinder. It comes up this. These are extremely brittle. Be careful when you take these apart. I've broken quite a few of these. So what happens is these upper screws strip out, and then you can't get the cap off. And then you get the cap off, you end up breaking the reservoir, and then you might as well throw the whole thing away. This boot is always missing, and the reason it's missing is because it's the easiest thing to take off. You pop this hose, you pull this clamp, you pull this clamp, you spray carb cleaner in here, and then you kick the bike over. somebody's been in here. This clamp's a little tweaked here, but it's tight, and so I think the bike's been running in this configuration. This is the original muffler. It's special to my knowledge. The 200X is the only bike to have this muffler. There's a similar muffler on the 350X, but it is different. But this is a very unique shape. None of the other bikes have this muffler on it that I'm aware of. This head pipe is a little bit different too, just the way it kicks in here behind the frame. You can adapt other head pipes, but this one is specific to the 200X. Our kicker is pretty sloppy. That's just part of it. They get this way with a lot of use. We've got an oil leak on the other side of the engine. The case is not cracked, which is good. Like I mentioned before, we've got some wires that don't go anywhere, so we need to trace them out and see what they go to. So first thing, we'll do a will it run on this, but I kind of wanted to show you what to expect, what pictures don't tell you. If you look closely, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up and down on the front end here and watch the rear axle and hub over there at the sprocket. See that? Can y'all see how the axle stays still but the rear swing arm pitches up? Okay, so it needs axle bearings in the rear, and if you look close, that rear brake pad is sloppy. And we have no compression on our rear brake, but we may not have any fluid in it, so we need to look into that. Things to watch for, things that are always missing: that rear skid pan or skid plate on the bottom of the swing arm and the front skid plate are always taken off and they're never put back on. So that's a good sign. That would tell me that probably the engine wasn't taken out. It's very common to pull that front pan when you pull the engine. So we've got a well-used 85 200X. The frame is solid. There's no rust through. There's surface rust everywhere, but it's not rusted through. All the welds look good. I haven't found any welds on this bike. The 200X is a really solid platform. Places to look for is in the tail, and the reason the tail gets damaged is because in a rollover, this bar gets hit, it gets flipped back, and it takes a hard enough hit that it will actually start to break these welds on all of the three-wheelers. Some are more prone than others. The 350X is probably the weakest in the tail. The 250R is weakest right here on the back of the engine. And the 200X, I really don't know a weak point other than this part of the frame rusted pretty bad due to the heat of the muffler. So I've seen that on several where this particular tube here is the rustiest. I've never seen one rust through, but this is where most of the rust is going to be on a 200X, and I believe that's just because the exhaust puts off so much heat, cooks the paint, and then rust is going to come in. Other than that, it's got really, really good bones. The axle seems straight, best as I can tell by rolling it. The bike does not run at this point. I have not even tried to start it. They told me it ran, but I buy every bike. If I go to look at a bike and it doesn't start when I'm standing there, I consider it does not run, regardless of what I'm told. They tell me it ran, show me. I'm one of those people. If you can't show me it running, it doesn't run. That's the definition of running. And they all used to run good. So either it runs when I'm in front of it, or I consider it or think of it as a non-running piece of equipment, and that's how I assess it. That's how I value it. If we can make it run when I'm standing there, great. But that was not the case. This gentleman has no intention of trying to make this bike run in front of me, and the price reflected that. And so that goes back to price. I see now we're missing a head bolt here. Could be broke off, might not be. Could have been the first one they took out before they changed their mind. I don't know, but that's an Allen wrench. That's an Allen bolt, and that goes back to parts bikes. And you can go out to another bike, not even a 200X, and you can get that exact same bolt off another bike. You can go get that one bolt right there, and you can come back and you'll have an OE Honda bolt that came out of the same location and is the correct bolt for the job. So we've got, this grip here is worn a lot more. I guess that's probably as heavy, a lot of clutch work there. This one is coming apart. I'm gonna say these are just some cheap grip, but they're here. They're decent. Again, 20 foot. The bike's got some work. I do like to inspect the air filter? Does it have one? I'm always leery about them, as you should be. All right, so we're missing some parts. And what we're missing, if you don't know, is there's an air cartridge or canister that sits here, and it sits sideways, and it's round. It looks like a biscuit, and that holds a round, real flat air filter, and it sits in this direction, not this direction. This is one of the bolts I was telling you about. There you go. So that's where that goes, and there should have been two of them. We're missing one. The owner told me that. More than likely, they pulled the air cleaner out, they sprayed carb cleaner in here, and then they tried to kick it over. And that probably worked, you know. That probably lit it off. We'll do a will it run and do it the right way, and we'll figure out exactly what we purchased. We've got an original tail light back here, which I got to tell you, tail lights take a beating. They take a beating. They always are missing. Brakes. People don't realize that brakes are expensive. And not the 200X is not as expensive as the 250R or the 350X, but replacing a brake caliper is kind of a big deal. They're expensive. You got to factor that in. We're talking over $100 for a brake caliper. So chain, definitely looks like we're going to need a chain. It sounds a little crunchy when you roll it. It's not the engine, it is the chain. It's really tight. See how tight that chain is? That chain is way too tight. And that's also why it's crunchy sounding like it is. One of the interesting things I saw was how nice and blue that spring is. Now that spring does not, to me, look like it has the wear and the fade as the rest of the bike. So maybe it was put in afterwards, or maybe it was just out of the sun, who knows. We do have this sprocket cover. I've just got it sitting there for the video. It came with it, it wasn't installed, so we do want to put that back on best we can. You see how this ear's broken off here? Yeah, things to look for. When they go, yeah, I got the cover, and they hand it to you, you need to look and see, why is it off? Why didn't they put it back on? Well, in this case, they broke the top ear off of it. So we'll see what we can do about that. Maybe we can build that back up or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, overall, I'm excited about it. It's a good project. I think it'll make some noise. It's not perfect, but then again, neither am I. But there you go. So 85 200X. She's rough, but she's all there. Everything that you need to make it run, for the most part, is there. Looks like we do have a bent peg. It's like this left peg looks a little bent, like it's a little lower than the right peg. Just things you notice. Make it nice and square there. I think the left peg is down just a little bit. Little minor things. So everybody wants to know, well, what'd you pay for it? How much is something like that? Well, it varies on where you're standing. I talk to people all over the US and even out of the country, and the prices are all over the place. Where I'm at, prices are pretty high, but this gentleman, he gave me a good price on it. That's why I went the distance to pick it up. I bought it for less than what it would cost me to replace the seat and the fenders. So there you go. That kind of tells you everything you need to know. That's where the value is. That's how I value a bike. I'm pleased with it. It needs a lot, but for what I paid for this bike, there's my money right there. I really like these tires. Their Duro is the brand. It's kind of a street tire. Nice looking. They're ITP wheels. The offset on these are actually, they're probably a +2 if I had to say on each wheel. The factory 200X wheel is pretty shallow, but we got nice tires, nice wheels. Certainly a value there. I think these tires, if you can find them, something comparable, they're about 110, 115 a piece. So you got 200 bucks in tires. The wheels, ITP wheels, nice, reputable brand. Probably looking at another 100 or so a piece for the wheels, 75 a piece, depends on if you can find them. The last set of wheels I tried to buy, they were out of stock and had been out of stock, back ordered for several months. So that's it. Those are some key things to look for on a 200X. It's a very specific bike. One of the more specific parts people don't realize is this intake is different because this head is different. Okay, this intake is kicked off to the side. If you look, maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't. The carburetor is not centered in the chassis like you say a 200S or a 200E or something like that. The carburetor is actually off to the side. This head is off to the side. The intake lines the carburetor up through this opening here, and that's why this boot, this air intake boot, is very specific to the 200X. You'll see the same configuration, different part, on the 250R and the 350X. They say that there is a power output difference. There's a performance gain in this head, and so a lot of people like this head and this cam. So that's about it. I think we've covered all the important parts. When you're looking at bikes online, really scrutinize the pictures. Look at what they're telling you. Listen to what they're telling you. Does it add up? Does it make sense? There's things that pictures don't tell you. And so, with that being said, every bike tells a story, and you got to find the truth somewhere between the pictures and the video and the conversations that you have. It's all part of finding old equipment. Anybody that thinks a bike that's been sitting in a field for 20 years is mint or going to be perfect, that's a pipe dream. That's not reality. This is what reality looks like. This is what a bike that's been sitting outside for a lot of years looks like. And there's nothing wrong with buying a bike like this. If you want a project, man, this is a great way to go. I'm all for resurrecting old three-wheelers. Y'all know that. That's what this channel's been built on, is me dragging in junk like that from the woods and sometimes just a bare frame or whatever, and building it back up and riding it again. That's what we do here. I would love to have mint perfect bikes, but that's not in the cards for me. That's not what I enjoy. The best enjoyment for me is getting this at a good price, doing a good job evaluating it, doing a good job of negotiating, and when I hear it run for the first time, that will be the best part of the ownership for me for this bike. That shows me what I can do. I can take a little and I can make a lot out of it, and you can too. You really can. And I try to encourage you every week to get out and do something. Basic hand tools is all it takes for this. Maybe you're not into three-wheelers. Maybe you stumbled across this channel by accident. But whatever you're into, do it. Your days are numbered, whether you want to admit it or not. If there's something out there you want to do, you need to go for it. You're not promised tomorrow, next month, or next year. If you want to build something, if you want to get into blacksmithing or turning wrenches or just working with your hands and creating something, I encourage you to start today. Make a plan, stick to it, be realistic. If you're not up to rebuilding something like that, that's fine. That's fine. Get something already running, But if that's your plan, that's your goal, then you need to take a step today to reach that goal. Whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a big step. Just learn what you can. If you're into three-wheelers, download the manual and read it. Find out which model you want. We know there's 113 different makes and models of these. Read about it. Start figuring out what they run and what they cost in your area. What parts are most common parts that are going to go bad that you're going to have to replace. Can you afford and should you buy a project? Are you mechanically inclined? Do you have basic hand tools? If not, maybe you need to find something that's already running. But maybe you want to learn, and that's what this channel's about. I'm trying to teach you what I know and pay it forward, and I don't know it all, and I get some of it wrong, and that's okay too. We all make mistakes, and we're not perfect, and we do the best we can. But you can do this: a socket set, a hammer, a good pair of pliers. Basic hand tools will take you so far in life. So again, thank you all for watching and subscribing and sharing. I hope you liked it. We did a little road trip on this video. We got a lot more content coming. I'm probably going to have to slow down on buying because I'm about to run out of room. So might be the last road trip for a while. We've got some other 200Xs if you like 200X content. We'll do a Will It Run on this one next. Of course, we got the Van Halen bike. Everybody seems to like that one. That's the tank we painted last year. Still looking good. A little muddy. We ride that one. We got an 84 here. And we got another 85 there. And so I probably should bring that 85 out. We'll do a side-by-side comparison, apples to apples. You can see real quick already that one's got a black seat on it. And if you did your homework, you already know that probably that seat should have been blue. So thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell your buddies, and get out in the shop. Do something. Turn some wrenches. You'll be amazed at what you get done. Thanks for watching. Bye.